Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining my session. Today, I will be talking about preprints. More importantly, I will be talking about early stage sharing of scientific outputs and what we can do as publishers, as researchers, as institutions, as funders, to make sure that the public has access to the latest scientific research as early as possible, as fast as possible, and in a reliable way. My name is Alberto Pepe, and I am Director of Strategy and Innovation at Wiley. This is just a summary about my work and background, so a little bit of a visual resume in one slide. The most important thing here is that I have a background in scientific research. I was doing work in astrophysics and computer sciences at different universities for about 12 to 15 years in my career. And later I started a platform for early creation and sharing of research results. And more recently, that platform called Autoria has been acquired by Wiley. And I now work at the intersection of open science, data sharing, reproducibility, and I have a passion for imagining what the future of scientific publishing will look like. Important for today's presentation is the fact that I posted my first preprint about 15 years ago in 2006. And so I've been pretty active in the field of early sharing and early dissemination of research results. I also have a slide, which is this one, that I use quite a lot in my talks. And so I am going to use it today as well. This is just the opening slide that in a way is supposed to deliver and give you an idea of like what my work and passion is all about. So this slide really it can be read as a mantra, and it starts off by saying researchers produce 21st century research, but they write it up using 20th century technology, and they publish it in a 17th century format. And so just to be a little bit more specific about what this means is that I think we all agree that research is by definition a collaborative, computational, data-driven, automated, web-based kind of effort. And so by definition is really at the cutting edge. It's all about creating new kind of knowledge and doing so in a collaborative way using the latest computational resources we have and bringing in data, automation, and the web. However, when you look at the type of tools that are being used to write up that research, you'll see that a lot of those tools are tools that were actually designed and built in the last century, in the 1990s or 1980s. LaTeX, PDF, Word, Excel are all formats that really are 20th century formats and 20th century tools and technologies. And by definition, they're not collaborative, they're not data-driven, they're not version controlled, they're also not backwards compatible. And then what's even more disappointing is that we're still publishing in a 17th century format. The paper you see on screen there on the right is actually a research paper from 150 years ago, and it doesn't look too different from what we publish and today. So even though we have moved in the direction of making sure that research is really cutting edge, it's 21st century, the tools that we use are 20th century, and we still publish in a 17th century format, which means in a rather static and two-dimensional way. Yes, it's true, we have taken things from a paper to a digital format, but a PDF is essentially a photograph of a real sheet of paper. So if we translate this in terms of publishing and the publishing industry, what happens, the real challenge we have is that we as publishers, we tend to flatten a lot of the content that we produce. So on the one end here, on the left, you'll have the inputs provided by the scientists, and the inputs are things like data, code, papers, visualizations. Researchers are producing real, dynamic, interactive, alive content. But the moment that they start writing up their papers, so they use authoring tools, the moment that the paper goes through peer review and enters peer review systems, and then it goes through production and typesetting, it slowly gets flattened. And so we end up outputting content which is static in nature, like the two-dimensional figure I'm showing here to the right. And so my point for today is, can preprints bridge the gap? So can preprints be the one thing that perhaps can deliver content in a more dynamic way and bypass a lot of the bottlenecks like authoring tools, peer review systems, and typesetting systems? So I assume that perhaps a lot, or maybe some of the people hearing my talk today may not be familiar with the notion of a preprint. And so I'll probably spend 30 seconds just mentioning what a preprint is. In general, it's an early research output. So preprint is whatever comes before the print, where print really means the final published, peer-reviewed version of a research paper, of a research work. So anything that comes before that, I like to think of as an early research output, as a preprint. In a more traditional way, a preprint has become a synonym for a version of a scholarly paper that comes before the formal peer review. So it's not peer reviewed. And so it's before publication in a peer reviewed journal. And the vast majority of times, preprints are offered or sort of shared with the public for free. And it's available even after the document, manuscript, is published. So preprints were not very common and very popular until about 2 years ago. They were very popular in just one field, or just a couple of fields, the field of physics, astrophysics, computer science. A lot of more technical, hard sciences were the fields in which preprints were a crucial component of the scientific dissemination landscape. However, in 2020, with the outbreak of COVID and worldwide pandemic, the amount of preprints posted by researchers started growing incredibly, also in fields outside of physics and computer science. So the graph that you see here to the left is a graph actually from The Economist that shows the first 6 months of the year 2020. And the blue line is the amount of peer-reviewed content that was published around COVID-19. And the light blue line is the same. It's also the volume of content that was posted in preprint format about COVID-19. As you will see, there's a one-to-one relationship. So for each single publication that came out, there was a preprint that came out as well. And this is unprecedented in the world of scientific research, and especially in the world of medicine, where for the vast majority for the by and large, only papers that had gone through peer review would normally be shared with the public. So to give you an idea, about 30,000 preprints appeared in 2020 and these are preprints about COVID-19 alone, and a third of them were mentioned by news articles. In other words, the news outlets, news venues were actually paying attention to preprints and were posting and writing about them. You can compare this number, about a third, so with the baseline, which is about 1% of preprints in general are mentioned by news articles. So this was a tremendous change, drastic change in how we disseminate research results. And this created problems right away, right? There's a quote up here, up at the top, and it's saying, oh, I'm starting to see what the problem is with preprints. There's a lot of junk science that would never enter, that would never even be submitted to a journal, that now all of a sudden is being shared widely. And then a different kind of quote here at the bottom that is saying, hey, preprints are actually a new way of doing things, and they are a way and a means to create disruption and to change, to bring about valuable transformation to how we do and how we disseminate scientific research. So there's definitely challenges and benefits to think about when we think about preprints and early stage research dissemination. The challenges and the drawbacks are really that, as I showed you in the previous slide, preprints can be perceived as low quality. And as I said, since they are used and mentioned a lot by the media, by journalists, and also seen by the public, they can be potentially misused. And lastly, but also very importantly, different journals might have slightly different policies on how to deal with preprints, and this can be inconsistent across journals and across publishers, giving headaches to authors and editors alike. But there's a lot of benefits. First of all, they allow scientific content to be disseminated as fast and as widely as possible. There is no wait time at all. As soon as a research result is available, it's disseminated with the public, with everyone, without a paywall, for free. Also, preprints are a way for researchers to say, hey, I came here first, I did this first. And so it really sets a record of priority. It's also important because the rapid sharing of results also means rapid evaluation of results. All of a sudden, you can have communities, the public, provide an immediate feedback, and so an immediate dialogue between research results and the public understanding and public consumption of science. The last 2 points here are also important. Without preprints, science would really act, or peer review, I should say, would act as a black box. The moment that a new research result is out, and when it's like fresh and new, the only people that would actually be exposed to the research results are the authors of that study and the peer reviewers, as well as the editor of the journal. But the rest of the world would not see that research. And so science and science screening would really operate in a black box. So preprints allow the box to be open. And then most importantly, this last point is crucial, is that if you consider that preprints also get cited because they're seen by researchers who are working on similar fields and they use that information to advance their own research, then because preprints get cited, then all of the scientific establishment is moving faster. And so research is being accelerated. So I'll spend the last 5 minutes or so of my presentation here to answer 2 questions. The first one is, how can we increase public trust in early stage research outputs? So how can we increase public trust in preprints? And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna answer that question showing you the platform, the product that I talked about at the beginning. It's a product that is now part of Wiley, and it's a platform for, once again, sharing, creating, and publishing cutting-edge open research that is preprints. As you can see at the moment, he has just over 17,000 preprints, and the keywords you see at the bottom there are pretty much show a breakdown of the kind of documents that have been shared on the platform. So anything from COVID-19 to clinical pharmacology, infectious diseases, and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to do at Authoria is that we're trying to inject preprints with some level of rigor and some level of reliability, so that they can be seen by the public, by journalists, by media, with a different kind of lens that gives preprints a little more than just a general study on a server. So as you can see here, this is an example of a preprint on Authoria, on the platform. He has a title at the top. He has a list of keywords, a list of authors. He has an abstract, and then in the blue box, you'll see a peer review status. So you can see, for example, for this specific preprint, that it's currently under review. It was submitted on a certain date to the journal Ecology and Evolution. And then you can actually showcase and expose the entire list of steps in the review process that this preprint has gone through. Why is this important? This is important because, as I said, a lot of times journalists or the public, they are looking at a given manuscript, at a certain paper on the web, and they actually don't know what they're looking at. They don't know if the document has been reviewed or not, if it's actually undergone peer review, if it's published in a journal. So this peer review status timeline allows researchers, journalists, the public, everyone to understand where this document is being reviewed and at what stage of the review process it is at. So if it's already gone through a revision, you can also see that in the peer review timeline, and that gives you an idea of the level in screening at which the document is. And of course, each preprint on the Authoria platform also receives a DOI. The DOI is a digital object identifier that allows preprints to be cited and to be identified in a unique way. At Wiley, we are actually really making it easy for authors submitting to Wiley journals to preprint their work while it's under submission. And we've created a publisher agnostic preprint server, and within that publisher agnostic preprint server, there's a collection called the Wiley Open Research Collection that groups together all of the content that is currently under review at 45 journals that are participating in this pilot. And so you'll see that, if you go to that web page at the moment, you'll see that there's over 2,000 documents that are currently being reviewed. So this is really about opening up the black box that I told you about before, and allowing everyone to see what kind of research is currently being reviewed by Wiley journals. And then the second and last question I'd like to pose is, can we rethink preprints to be more dynamic and interactive than traditional published documents, than traditional published outputs? And so this is important because, as I said before, we have been publishing in a 17th century format. But as I said at the beginning, scientists are now providing us with much more interactive, dynamic, data-driven content. And can we really use preprints as a vehicle to publish that kind of content? And so the second example I'm going to show you here is from a different preprint. It is a preprint that, once again, looks very similar to the previous one. It has a list of authors, a title, an abstract. It has the peer review status, so you can see exactly the history of this preprint. And then it has also the usual citation box with the digital object identifier, the DOI. It also has versioning. As you can see, this is version 2 that we're looking at, if you look at the bottom right indication there. And the versioning is possible because on Authoria, we actually allow authors to edit their content. So after they post a preprint, they can then go back to the preprint and click edit. As you can see, there's an edit button right there at the top right of the screenshot. And besides that, there's also an additional number of things that you can do So in other words, you can really act on this preprint and use Autoria as the place where you can edit, improve, and submit your preprint. The edit option, the edit feature, allows you to truly interact and edit this preprint as if you were editing a Word document. But in addition to doing that, as you can see, there's a toolbar there at the top that allows you to edit the content. It also allows you to add data and add interactive visualizations like this one. So this is a kind of published visualization that was created by the authors of this document. And why is this important? This is important because in a traditional journal, in a traditional publication, it would show as a two-dimensional image, but because it's a compound chemical structure, having the ability to plot and to rotate and to fully interact with the image allows the readers as well as other researchers to really understand this image in all its complexity. And we believe that this is the way through which preprints can be a vehicle for disseminating scientific research in a more flexible, dynamic, interactive format, which reflects much more the future of publishing and a 21st century kind of research publishing. And with that, I am going to close my session. And if you have any questions, I'm not going to be able to take them right now. However, at the bottom here of the screen, you'll see my Twitter handle as well as my email. So you're very welcome to reach out to me by Twitter or email for any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you in person soon. Bye.